with bullying? Have you been bullied before? Have you ever been a bully? I think I've been on both sides. Coming from a big family, and I'm one of the eldest children in my mother's side. I think it's quite easy to become a bully when you're treated in a certain kind of way that just becomes your natural reaction. As I said a while ago, it becomes your natural reaction to things. When you're bullied by the adults around you, you also become a bully to the younger ones that are left with you. And I feel like when you grow up, it gives you some kind of dent in your confidence, and it gives you that tiny percentage of being bullied as well, because you're not very confident with yourself. You weren't able to do those. Yeah, so you have that kind. So there is like a circle to it. You know, what goes around comes around, as they say. So let's begin. What is bullying? Bullying is um, being physically, verbally, relationally, and even online, trying to hurt someone. But did you know that reacting to these kinds of stimuli actually start um, when as young as infancy? So I just want to show you this very, very quick video that I saw, and it's about a child and how they respond to an environment that is quite hostile. So you would see an immediate effect um, of an environment that is not loving and gentle to a child that, is as um absorbent as a sponge. So we'll see. This is a very, very short video. If it's not playing for you, I will send the link in the chat as well, and then you can play it for yourself. Um, so let's watch it. Let me just add the sound, share sound.
We can see the video, Miss Taj, but we don't have sound.
Mm. Okay, so I will narrate what's happening instead.
Okay.
So at the beginning, the facilitator gave the baby a box with a toy inside and told her to explore. And so the baby did, um, freely explored the object. And now the facilitator is showing how to play with a couple of beads. And so this other adult comes in, as you can see here at this corner. This adult will be sitting and pretending to read a book. And the facilitator verbalized this, that this is my friend, Kelly. Look at this. And look how Kelly reacted. She said, "That is so annoying. That is so aggravating. Stop it." And then the girl in the white, the emoter, continues reading. And so the facilitator asks the child to play once more. And you could see by the child's reaction, the child immediately knows not to play with the beads because they know there is conflict in the room. There was conflict in the room when it was first played with. So this is just an example of how intuitive children are. They can feel conflict inside the room. Now, imagine this is the norm of a child. So just imagine how they're going to learn about how to handle emotions, how to um deal with situations. I mean, I'm sure in some households, for example, if they're the third child and their eldest child is being punished, and it's in the way of slapping or being shouted at, and they can see the effects of this, the socialization inside the home. They can see this, and it actually translates with how they would cope outside of the home. It can also be a habit or something that they pick up from school as well. So if they see the teacher, or if they understand from the teacher that manipulation and talking down are ways of how you can get your message across, this is also the way that they will begin expressing themselves at home. So yeah, it's a very good video, and there are tons of other videos on the internet, and I just wanted to show that because it's very interesting. I mean, from when a child is still a baby, they're already quite sensitive to these kinds of things. So what are types of bullying? As I said, there is physical, where there's hitting, pushing, or damaging belongings, verbal bullying, such as when they are name calling, teasing their friends, spreading rumors. There's relational bullying, whereby they exclude certain people from play. Children are also, when they're around 5 or 6, they know how to spread things about their friends, and they laugh about it too. I mean, I noticed this in some of my classes as young as 5. They're able to have this kind of socialization whereby laughing at another person can be quite fulfilling, because hey, I mean, a lot of my friends are laughing with me, I must be so cool. So this is something that they don't really understand, but it happens. If it becomes a habit, it happens, and when they grow up without it being addressed by the parents, this relational bullying turns into something more that might be cyberbullying. I mean, right now in this age where a lot of children have a lot of handphones to communicate with their parents while at school, it is also quite prevalent that they are exposed to cyberbullying, because they already have TikTok, they have Instagram, even in Roblox there are chat boxes there, even in Minecraft there's also voice calling there. They have these easy access to digital platform, and young children don't really have that kind of continuous screening. Sometimes their parents just let them play because they know that they're just playing with their friends, but you don't really know the full content of it. And dealing with bullying in schools isn't as simple as people often think, because every situation, it has its layers, and there's always more going behind the scenes than what you see um, face to face or online. But sometimes with cyberbullying that's happening with children, and schools sometimes not doing anything about it, parents resort to publishing these cases online, and sometimes it does blow up. And when it does, public outrage will tend to take over, and people will be rushing to judge the bully, will judge the victim of the bully, and they would demand quick action. But the problem is, in real life, it isn't really that straightforward, because for example, for educators like me, um, schools, administrators, they have to handle these kinds of things very, very carefully. They need to consider everyone that's involved, and the long-term impact this has on their school, on their company, on their brand. I mean, schools nowadays are not just schools, they're also brands, they're also companies with an image that they want to uphold. So these kinds of things has a long-term impact, and it can clash with, the emotional reactions that are seen online. So, with bullying, there is a lot of perspectives that you need to take into account. There's the victim, the bully, the people who watched this bullying case. There's plenty of children who just don't want to be part of it. There's teachers who just let it be because, they're just too tired to do classroom management. They're overworked, overstimulated, that they're not as sensitive, they're not as hyper aware of things happening inside their classroom. And many other underlying factors at home, such as, mental health issues. The child might have family problems, or even just the school culture overall. Um, yeah, so the key idea of this, when there is an online debate about bullying cases, is that teachers cannot deal with it alone. It's it's uh it's a work in progress that should be hand in hand with the community, the teachers, and the parents, because one avenue will not solve this thing when, children would usually be in different spaces throughout the week. So everyone must be tied up together. So what are the telltale signs that your child is being bullied or your student is being bullied? Because sometimes you don't really see it immediately. So firstly, I mean, while bullying we feel, would leave visible marks, sometimes it can be just emotional signs too. It can affect a child's mood, and with this mood it's connected with their body, their body language, their behavior, their wellness. When if a child seems withdrawn, anxious, unusually sad or moody, reactive children, it may be a sign that something's wrong. These emotional shifts often reflect stress, fear, or shame that bullying causes, especially if the child doesn't feel safe talking about what's happening to them. They feel like their teacher will not believe them, or they feel like their mom will make a big deal out of it. You know, yeah, you will be able to notice it. Uh, but the problem is you won't be able to notice it immediately. It's kind of gradual, and by that time a child might have reached already their breaking point if they're showing these emotional signs. Hopefully you don't ever see physical signs
I
to
am
your
so
student.
sorry. I am so sorry to jump in real quick, Miss Taj, and I apologize to you and to all the attendees. I'm being alerted about background noise on your system, audio noise. I don't know if there is a cable that's not connected properly from your microphone or anything. Just try to see if there is anything that can be done. If not, just continue. Those are, things of technology which we unfortunately are not very powerful against them. But just continue, Ms. Taj. If the problem persists, we'll see if our participants can somehow manage to deal with that. Go ahead, please. You may proceed now.
Hello, is this better?
There is a scratch sound every time you say anything. So if
Scratchy sound.
your talk continues, then the scratch sound continues as well. But nothing we can do. We have
Even
already,
now I disconnected my AirPods.
okay. But just
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about it, please. Not too much we can do at this time. Let's try to focus on your content instead. We will manage to
Okay.
deal with the noise. Thank you.
Is it very, very loud?
Oh, now it's getting better, by the way.
Yeah, now it's okay.
It's about 85% okay.
Good. Okay, so it might be my AirPods then.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Okay, that is fine. Let me reshare. Where was I again? I was saying, I hope your child never experiences these physical signs, because these physical evidences, torn clothing, even bruises, it might suggest that the child is being hurt. And I feel like this is one of the worst things. I mean, being hurt mentally is also as quite aggravating, but I feel like when child has physical signs, I mean, poor thing, right? I mean, I don't think I'll ever stand it if a child has physical signs of being hurt. I mean, I've had cases about this, but it's not bullying from peers, it's bullying from the parents. So that, I mean, that's another discussion in itself. Okay, moving forward, we also have behavioral changes, whereby, a child who is usually happy-go-lucky is suddenly reluctant to go to school. They lose interest in hobbies that they used to have, or there is a noticeable drop in their grades. These can actually all point to bullying, because these things happen. These changes would often happen because the child associates school with fear or humiliation. So these are some of the telltale signs. Um, Emotional signs, swings, physical signs, injuries, broken toys, torn clothing, mm, frequent headaches or stomach aches. And the third is behavioral changes. Now, what are the common causes of bullying? Well, firstly, as I told you a while ago, no one is born a bully. Sometimes they are just imitating someone, you know, sometimes it's a mix of influences in a child's life, because kids often copy what's around them. And if they're exposed to aggressive behavior at home, whether it be directed to them, directed to their siblings, to a parent, or to another relative, or may it be something they watch it from their iPad, their little shows, movies or games. They might start to think that this is the normal way to behave, and that it's acceptable, if no one is doing anything about it. Because such a brazen attitude to violence, is not born overnight. This attitude is learned and normalized, and perhaps, especially now, perhaps repeated exposure to the online world. Secondly, it could be also that some children need that sense of control or attention. Some children bully others because it gives them a sense of power or importance. Like, this is where they get their confidence from. They weren't taught how to be humble in the face of confidence. Sometimes you can be confident, but you can be humble as well. You can be an overachiever without putting other people down. You can be strong without using it against anyone to, assert your power. Sometimes these children, they don't get the recognition at home. So bullying others might give them, that attention, might make them feel more secure because they have the power, they can move the situation, and in other parts of their life, maybe they're unnoticed or insecure or powerless. You know how, like, a younger sibling that is bullied might be a bully in their own class too, because they learn these kinds of things. They see that, an older sibling might show that, achievement in hurting the younger sibling, and thus they bring this attitude to the classroom where there are younger children and they can assert their power as well. So they use bullying to gain this attention and to feel that at least in school, I mean, if at home my brother gets all the attention, while at school, I will have the lead attention. You will pay attention to me. At least at school, I am in charge. You see how this is all a circle. So what they feel, they also give to other people. And lastly, social and environmental factors. The environment a child is in is a big role too. So, sometimes children are peer pressured, there's a lack of structure during their playtime, or mostly there's little to no adult supervision. Like sometimes you just let your children play with other peers, not really listening to the content of conversations, and this can actually create opportunities for bullying to happen, because in these kids bully to fit in, because they don't have clear guidance on what is behavior that is acceptable when they are interacting with other peers. So, what are the adults' roles? I mean, in this situation, there are two important adults, it's the parents and the teachers. Now, what should we be doing? If you are a parent, okay, let's start with parents. If you are a parent, we model positive behavior at home. Of course, this is so difficult if you are the teacher and you know that parents are not showing or modeling positive behavior. So yeah, but that's another discussion in itself. But as parents, we model positive behavior. How do we resolve conflict? How do we set boundaries when something is said and it is quite, you know, not nice, quite mean? For example, your husband would tell you something that is not nice, like, hey, can you change that dress? It kind of looks ugly. How do you respond to that when your child is listening? How do you set boundaries? Do you slap your husband's mouth and say, shut it? You know, or do you explain yourself lengthily whereby your point gets all woven across and it's also confusing already? It's already a big thing. That's also kind of like verbal bullying, right? So you have to model behavior that you'd like your children to have. So that's as parents. I feel like we have constant healing to do as adults anyway. And even if you don't get it correctly the first time, you can still start today. You can still reflect and start today. That's what I always say to parents. If you started with the wrong foot with your children and you haven't been modeling the behavior that you wanted them to have, you can also take accountability. Like, I'm sorry, I just realized this is not the dad I want to be. This is not the mom I want to be to you. So we like this. We have new rules, we have new ways to respond to each other, and this is how we model positive behavior to a child. There's always a second chance. And this is also how you encourage open communication. When you're accountable for your mistakes before, your child will also feel, hey, there's nothing wrong with saying I did something wrong, because now I'm going to change it. So that's how you encourage open communication. And third, when you have these first two, then it's easier for you to teach problem solving skills. Why? Because you can brainstorm with your child what could work in these kinds of situations. Then you would know your child's primary instinct. What is their initial reaction? How do they react with these kinds of situations? And then you work it from there. And thirdly, you collaborate with the school. Of course, this is not something that parents should keep just inside the home. I feel like if um if issues pile on top of each other and your child starts getting stressed, I think that's already too much of a load for a child. So even before it escalates to something, please collaborate with the school. I mean, I've had one set of parents this year that didn't raise any concerns for the first part of the year. Come August, they were sending me a long email how their child is very stressed in school, don't want to go to school because of this certain child, this certain um group of friends, and we didn't know about it because the child was not displaying any of the symptoms. And we were thinking maybe he's just um, reacting to situations, but not because he is affected it himself. So you see, when you have a big class and you have multiple classes going on, sometimes it's really hard for teachers to pinpoint the problem unless you as a parent already like bring it up. Now for teachers, the first thing that we do is to create a safe and inclusive environment. Prevention is always better than cure. If you already set a safe and inclusive environment, um, the children's daily interactions um, will be in a way that is guided and proactive, and their daily interactions would have respect, and they would know how to respond to conflict. Secondly, teachers um, should teach emotional intelligence. So helping children understand and managing their own emotions can go a long way, because sometimes bullies, they just don't know how to, which avenue they need to take so that they can express what they really feel. Lessons and discussions about empathy, kindness, communication, building social and emotional awareness could greatly help when it comes to children who really don't know how to express themselves, aside from tendencies to bully other children. Um, Third, early intervention. Because when bullying behaviors appear, even in small, small ways, very, very teeny, tiny ways, I think, as educators, we should address them immediately. We should let the parents know, hey, this is what I've noticed this week. Your child has been quite reactive to her friends. She would easily push them when she is upset or say unkind words, such as nobody will like Rome. Sometimes it's okay to bring it up to parents, even if it's a tiny thing, because it might be a reflection of their playtime at home. You can also ask, are there new playmates that your child is being exposed to? Do they have new activities? Do they have new clubs outside of school? And maybe in these groups, you might find that there is one kid who speaks that way to their friends, and your child might think, you know, that it's normal. Early intervention and talking to parents, even with like tiny things like this, would help de-escalate and would send a very, very clear message that bullying isn't tolerated at school. And lastly, we use positive reinforcement. This is quite an issue. I mean, especially here where I teach in Singapore, they don't really believe. I mean, very recently, where there's a lot of bullying cases this year, um, certain citizens would say they don't believe in positive reinforcement or rehabilitation anymore, because they feel like children should be punished. But I don't know. What do you say about that? What do you feel about bullies? What is the culture in your place? I mean, maybe in your place you are more open and understanding. Maybe you're in a Catholic community where, you encourage them to go to church, confess their sins, or are you more like my community in Singapore where they don't believe about positive reinforcement, and that some adults would think that public caning is the way to discipline, to shame these children to stopping, because there are a lot of like bullying cases recently, and I feel that everyone quite on high alert, because if this child experiences this kind of treatment, then next time it would be my child. I feel that's the reason why everyone is on high alert. So I don't know about you. What do you think about rehabilitation and positive reinforcement for bullies? Maybe that can be part of your reflection in as a takeaway for this talk. Moving on, let's talk about supporting the children. For children who are victims of bullying, we should provide them emotional support. It's important to listen and validate the child's feelings. We let them know that, being bullied is not their fault at all. Nothing is wrong with them. But having emotions about it, despite knowing that nothing is wrong with them, is normal. It's okay to be hurt, even if you know it's not true. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay. It's quite normal. But I assure you, you are a strong boy. You are very lovable. You have a lot of other friends. You are capable of making new friends. You need to validate and give the child other avenues that they can walk through so that they can escape this feeling of being caged. We provide this safe and non-judgmental space for them to express themselves and to reduce feelings of like isolation and hopelessness and shame. Nextly is to encourage the child to build self confidence and to practice assertiveness, like when when is enough, you know how much is enough for you, because some children, they can take light teasing and just laugh about it, but some children who are more sensitive, they cannot tolerate these kinds of things. They cannot laugh about it. They will not let it go. They will dream about it. So we teach children how to be assertive with their boundaries and how much they can take. What can they do if someone is pushing themselves onto them? Do we teach them to stop and remove themselves from the situation? Do you feel like standing up for themselves is more safer? Do they have non-aggressive ways? Do they know about non-aggressive ways on how to speak firmly without being rude? How to show strong body language without hitting back, or how to seek um help from other adults without feeling shame that, oh, I'm such a loser for immediately calling the teacher. Some children might feel this way as well, that they don't want to tell the teacher because it's going to become a big thing. But this thing can help them regain a sense of control of the situation. So that is for victims. And lastly is to involve parents and other teachers as well, because a coordinated approach, I feel, um, would work more consistently, and open communication helps everyone monitor the situation, because sometimes it stops at school but continues in the neighborhood. We have to be quite alert about that. These little children, they learn how to be more sneaky. Sadly, they learn this from home, from communities. So we just need to be more hyper aware. For bullies, of course, they also need support because they haven't learned these things, such as social emotional learning. How do we express ourselves without being a bully? You know, How do we respond to conflict in healthy ways? Social emotional learning programs usually support learning about empathy, kindness, problem solving, giving children role playing scenarios on how to navigate social situations without resorting to aggression or exclusion. Next is we establish very clear rules and consequences. Like, okay, right now, I guess this is your initial response to this kinds of situation, but the next time that you will do this is your consequence. You will be removed from the class. You will have no unsupervised playtime. You will have less toys during free play. You will have less choices during craft time. You need to seek recyclables yourself, or you have to bring these stuff to support your other friends. There has to be logical rules and consequences for them so that they also know that there are consistent consequences for bullying, and we can send a strong message that these actions, they're harmful. That's why we are guiding you to stop. Because if we have a no tolerance policy to bullies, it helps children understand that boundaries, fairness inside the classroom, uh, it is solved quite swiftly and quickly. We are going to do something about it. There will be consequences next time. And lastly, we encourage group activities that are supervised, cooperative play for children, team projects for slightly older children, group challenges, things that you can assign them certain tasks where they can actually foster the friendship, and that can teach children to work together. But of course, this is one of the final steps for you. I mean, when you are rehabilitating a bully, I feel like this should be their like big hurrah. Like, okay, now I will give you a chance to be a participant in a group project, because I feel like you have understood how to show empathy, how to react with kindness. We already set our rules, your consequences if you repeat the bullying. Now your final hurrah is to display and practice what we have learned over the past month in a group activity. Yeah, it's usually a month, weeks to process a child, because there are a lot of underlying issues for bullies, and it doesn't really start and stop somewhere. Sometimes you are able to guide them well at school, but at home they still do the same thing, or it could be the other way around. You're guiding them well at home, but at school they're still doing the same thing. So it can be a long process, but we work through it because we are the adults in the space. We take control of the situation. It's not the children. So there is a question recently about zero bullying. Do you think zero bullying is possible? Some say that zero bullying is actually unrealistic, because bullying is common and complex, and sometimes they're often hard to detect, and when they're hard to detect you can't really address them. So there are a lot of public expectations for schools and teachers to eliminate bullying quickly, but they clash with a lot of like realities. At least for Singapore, they're having a hard time talking about what should be done to bullies and how we can prevent them. There's a lot of talk about it, especially this year, because the bullying has become more violent. Children would there has been a case of children being stomped at by their peers in school grounds. So that those kinds of things are quite at high alert here. Um, yeah, so you can also, there's also something you can think about. Is zero bullying possible? Yeah, so we are talking about the bullies. What do we do about them? So first we understand the root causes, is there are there family problems, is there exposure to aggressive behavior, is there, do they have a friend who is a bully that, peer pressure them and give them that spark, that desire for control and attention. There's also a low esteem, insecure children. Secondly, is there someone who can provide emotional and social support? Is there a parent available to guide them? Do they have a confidant that they can talk to every day, or do they just resort to talking to internet friends that they haven't met yet? We should give them an avenue to have some support, support that is supervised by known adults such as teachers and parents, like counseling or therapy. Sometimes these things help children explore their feelings, and sometimes this is where they also find, oh, this is my motivation for doing this. This is the reason why I'm doing this. Pairing them with role models would also work, I think. And next is for them to be taught problem solving, resolution skills. What are things that they can do to, aside from being reactive, being aggressive. You know, we need to teach these children the things that they don't know. Like how to manage their anger, what words to say when they're frustrated, when they don't have the wheel of the situation. What do they do? What do they do when they feel the impulse to hit, or to say, or to cuss out their friends? How do we teach them to catch that thought before it goes out of their mouth? This is something that we need to practice, because children, they can't learn this on their own. They need guidance. They've only been here a while. So they need our constant guidance or constant validation. They need the adults to steer the conversation and be responsible, because at the end of the day, we are responsible. These children don't grow as bullies without the experience of being bullied. So it is totally our responsibility. And even if it wasn't us, it's still our responsibility. So aside from that, once your child has been open to talking, doing therapy, role playing with problem solving, resolution skills, that is when we encourage positive reinforcement. But again, it depends on everyone's culture, because in the Philippines, we are um, we are open to doing positive reinforcement, but here in Singapore, it's strict. So it really depends on where you're from. Later on, I will send you a very interesting link. There is this minister in Singapore, and they're talking about what to do with bullies. And lastly, parent-school collaboration. So I have it here actually, but we don't have time to watch it. So I'll give you the link in a moment. Can I just share the link now? Yeah, maybe I'll share the link now so that you can watch it in your own time. Yeah, there, I'll copy the link because it's very interesting. It's definitely something you can discuss with your peers, and like search for more things that you can do for children who are bullies, because oftentimes they're overlooked we usually focus on the victims of bullying. But what about the bullies? They need to be rehabilitated too. So these are the takeaways for, I mean, I hope these are your takeaways from this talk. Is that what I said a while ago? Early intervention is crucial, prevention is better than cure. When all the chaos is there, you need to deal with it. So what I suggest you do is to prevent it from becoming a chaos first. We address bullying as soon as it appears. We reduce the likelihood of repeated incidents, clear consequences. We help both the victim and the bully to develop healthier social skills. Nextly is that collaboration is key. Teachers alone can't do this. Administrators alone can't do this. Parents alone can't do this. It's us hand in hand working with the same uh, amounts of discipline to the child. Because if the teacher is very free and easy and at home they're being disciplined very well, it's not going to be uh, very effective, right? So collaboration is key. We all play a role in recognizing, reporting, and responding to bullying, because when everyone works together, interventions are more consistent and children would feel and are better supported.